For me, my story began a little over 10 years ago. And I was sitting on the edge of my bed with my feet firmly planted on the hardwood floor beneath me. I slowly leaned over and I put my elbows on my knees and put my face in my hands. And tears began streaming down my face. That was the moment that I broke. And when I broke, I knew that I needed to shift the perspective and the mindset on how I viewed myself as well as the outside world. Now, I tell you that not so that you have to have a rock bottom moment like I did. Everyone's version of rock bottom is very different. Mine happened to be exactly what I needed. One of the major reasons that I needed to shift in the way that I viewed myself and how I interacted with the outside world was because I grew up as a people pleaser. And I made sure that the outside world around me was as calm as possible. But I never paid attention to the internal chaos that was happening within me. Because every decision that I ever made in life led me to that moment where you had to decide, do I want to carry on with that much stress and pain, fear, anxiety? Or do I take the easy way out? Thank God that I actually chose to lift that 10,000 pound weight, brick by brick, off of me. And the only way I've ever been able to do that is to pay attention to the way that I felt, the way that I thought, the way that I saw things, and how my external world was influencing my internal world. Now, the thing that I have hoped to be able to bestow to all of you today in the beginning part of this speech is to understand your calmness will create clarity, and your clarity will create your consistency. Your consistency will finally create your confidence. Because no matter what we do in life, you need to have a confident stance in order for you to accomplish anything that you set out to do. Because no matter how much we would love to be able to do everything all the time, it's just not possible. We only have a limited amount of willpower. It's pretty much reminiscent like a battery. As the battery is full, you have a ton to expend. As it decreases, you do not. We have what's called activation energy. And that activation energy is that small snap that moves you into motion and to put you into moving toward what you want to do. It's a very quick activation. Once that's over, you have what's called willpower. How long do you want to try and continue on down the path that you need to go on? You do need to take risks. You do need to be able to come back to a calm equilibrium because you can't overextend yourself. I used to do that all the time. One of the things that I had to concentrate on is being able to recognize that my internal peace needed to radiate rather than the external peace in the world trying to permeate my life. I needed to switch that concept. And the moment that all of you are able to do the same, you will feel more empowered than you can possibly fathom. So, no matter how much time and energy and effort you decide to pour into something, I hope you choose to do that for yourself first. You're only going to be able to go as far as you're willing to put into you. So all of the support, all of the questions, all of the confusion, the successes, the failures, we'll go over all of those. But for right now, just take a deep breath start to get a better understanding of where you are right now. And then you'll start to realize what you hope to accomplish by attending this conference. And when you do, there's going to be a moment that may hit you like a light bulb, that may go, aha, that rung true with me. What I'm hoping you'll be able to do is just write that down. When you write something down and you give it life, that's one of the reasons journaling is extremely important in what we do in life. And that's one of the reasons that we have friends and family, and anything that you find that rings true with you, write that down. It may not make sense to me. It only needs to make sense to you. Because none of us have ever lived the life that you do. I've been raised very differently than many people here. We have come from very different backgrounds. We have different structures in family and friends and support and business. All those aspects are very, very different. So it's impossible for me to see the world through your eyes. But it is possible to share my world in hopes that something might be able to ring true with you to switch or change your perspective. So, with that said, let's jump into the psychology of trading. The psychological aspects behind you as a trader will boil down to who you were when you got raised by whatever structure it was, how that is now playing into you now, because that will bleed into who you become as a trader. Your successes, your failures, your apprehension, your willingness, all of those things that you have and possess right now are the exact same tools and sets that you will need to deploy as you trade. It makes sense. So for you to get a better understanding of why you even jumped into trading, or why you even jumped into the concepts of making money, all come into play before you even begin to trade. Because how you decide to set yourself up for any moment is extremely important on how you proceed to get to the outcome, or how you proceed in creating the path to get to where you need to be. One of the more important aspects is being able to understand one of the three subsets that I try to imply to everyone. But first is control what you can control. Now, I'm sure everyone in some way, shape, or form has probably heard that saying, and it's probably been said, hopefully, to give you a positive note or to give you some connotation of moving in the right direction or becoming more self-aware. And that's wonderful. But more often than not, when people use that phrase, they say, you can't control what they do, when they do it, how they do it, or what they do. That's pointing the finger. So as Gary Vee says, one of my favorite sayings, stop pointing fingers and start pointing thumbs. When you do this, you're going to be able to understand that this is the responsibility for you to take control over your emotions and how you feel. Because at the end of the day, emotions will dictate your actions and your reactions. We all have emotions. They come and go like an ocean tide. Sometimes it's high tide, and it can become very overwhelming. But the moment it becomes overwhelming, you have to take the stance of recognizing that this will pass. The joy, the sadness, the pain, the regret, all of those things that we feel in trading, they will pass. You have another opportunity. There will always be another opportunity. There's a great saying, those are bull markets somewhere. You can find it. So whatever emotion that you currently feel in that state, you have to be able to understand that it will come and go. when you understand controlling what you can control is internal, that's when the external world starts to get less chaotic. Because no matter what, you will always control the actions or reactions that you get to deploy. Your actions will be predicated on whether or not you want to or don't want to. That'll be driven by emotion as well. Your reactions will be driven by what an external source has provided to you. So your reactions also will be dictated by emotions. So when you get down to the real scenarios of why you're going to choose to trade or any market that you're going to choose to trade, recognize that your emotions need to be in check. You're never going to get rid of them. It's impossible. We're all human. We all have them. That makes us all connected because we can have the same ability to feel joy and sadness and regret and the ability to see opportunities. We all share that, but we all view it very differently. Hence, a lot of people will have a different reaction and action when it comes to their emotions. No one will ever see the world the way you do. But that's okay. That we don't have to. You just have to create the world that you want. And a lot of that will start boiling down to your emotions. So get a better understanding of why you feel the way that you feel, and you'll become a more successful trader before you decide to jump into this environment. The second thing that I hope for you to take away is to say it out loud. Now, saying it out loud doesn't mean you just talk to yourself all the time. That would be a little bit weird. You can, but hopefully you'll have a little bit restraint. The ultimate meaning of saying it out loud is cultivating a space when what you have is that silent narrative in your head that shapes the reality you live in. You need to take ownership and responsibility for it. And the way you do that is to say it out loud. This happens in life and in trading. This is both aspects. When you say things out loud, you hear it differently. You give yourself an opportunity to hear things that might make a difference in balancing out the opinion that you have inside your head. That's why we have support groups. That's why we have individuals that we have as a mentor or a sounding board. Those aspects are extremely important because the moment you say something, you have to take ownership and responsibility because you just created it and brought it out to the world. Even if you made a bad trade, say it out loud to yourself. Oh, God, I can't believe I made that trade. I'm so stupid. Well, I might not be stupid. Maybe I didn't follow my pattern correctly. But if you keep that inside your head, the negative narrative that you will continue to spin when things don't go your way becomes the reality you live in. And that reality needs to be balanced out by people that you love, support, and trust to help bring you back to a path that is more feasible for you to get to where you need to be. That's the reason we say these things out loud. There's a reason that therapy can be extremely helpful. There's a reason that we have support groups that in any way, shape, or form, whether that be for drugs or alcohol or PTSD or divorce or whatever it may be, pick a support group, whatever one suits you. There's a reason they're there. It's to say it out loud. Without it, you become very caught in a myopic view of a reality that does not exist. And that, I hope, you'll be able to see. The more that you can let it out, the easier and lighter life will be for you. It will also make your trading world extremely less chaotic. Because if you're not following your system correctly and you just make a trade and you say in your head, oh, those 2 indicators, they were right. Normally I only trade if I have 4, but if I have it inside my head, I'll just say that 2, and then I'll balance it out and say, oh, the market was terrible. Say it out loud. I'm going to make this trade because it hits all of my indicators. And if it doesn't, now you know you might not be in the position you think you should be in. That's why it's extremely important to do it. We all do this. Everyone has a voice inside their head. No one's any different. It's just how you choose to deploy the words that are said to either help you or hurt you. And because you have it so locked up inside your head, no one can help you unless we know what's going on. That's why a mentorship, that's why a trading coach, that's why in therapy or support groups, that's why they're that important. Seek that out. Whatever makes you more comfortable is one of the most important things you can take away from all of these speeches in this conference. It's you, not me, not any other speaker on this panel, no one with an expertise. Because the more that we give you an answer, the more that you're imitating our lives. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to make you better. But you have to be able to strong enough to say it out loud and bring it to life. The third aspect is breathe. Breathing is one of the most fundamental things that you do in life. It's the only reason I'm standing here talking to you right now. How to control my breath, when to be able to elevate, when to breathe, the pauses. Breath is the most important thing you can possibly do in every part of your existence. Yet many of us overlook it as it being trivial and just accept that no matter what, it will happen. And it does because it's involuntary. But that doesn't mean that because of the involuntary nature of you breathing to keep you alive, you can't control the aspects when you need it. There is a ton of different breathing techniques out there, a ton. You can read books on it, and there's an incredibly beneficial book called The 33 Breathing Techniques. It's amazing. I highly recommend you pick it up before you even begin to jump into trading. Or if you're a seasoned vet, I highly recommend you also read it. Because as you know, your breath is extremely determined to control your nervous system. Think about it. You have jumped into cold water before. Every one of us here has been in cold water. And what happens when you do? You lose your breath because your breath is trying to help you. And in that moment, there's no way that you're going to go, oh my God, I'm in freezing cold water. I should trade Apple today. Yeah, I think it's going to be, you cannot make clear decisions. That's how important your breath is. It's extremely trivial, but it's the most important aspect you can have. Learn to breathe through your stomach, your diaphragmatic breathing. It's extremely important because that will draw more air into the bottom parts of your lungs, which will help you become more oxygenated, which will help you bring you into a calmer state. And as I stated before, the calmness will create your clarity, which will create your consistency, which will finally build your confidence. It's built on your breath. So when you do that, it's simple. Focus on it. Before you make a trade or before you jump into anything in life, simply take a breath. One of the quickest and easiest ways that's been proven 1930s was called the physiological sigh. And that physiological sigh is proven still now to be the fastest way to reduce any amount of stress that you have. It's going to be impossible for you to remove all stress. That doesn't happen. But if you have the ability to create less of it, that's a positive. Physiological sigh is very quick and easy. If some of you have heard of it, that's phenomenal. For those of you that have not, it goes something like this. It's 2 breaths in through your nose and a longer exhale out through your mouth. As you longer exhale, you're going to engage your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the state that creates calm. There's a reason for that. The more that you get into fight or flight, or the more that you get into feelings of your threat, your breath will pick up, your shoulders will pick up, and you'll start to breathe up here because you have to prepare yourself for what's next. Think about that for a second when you jump into any trade. Do you want your body prepared for fight or flight? Or do you want your body in a calm state for you to make more clear, concise decisions? It's simple. It's your breath. So don't forget that, because a lot of what we do as traders, even in all markets, it doesn't make a difference. You're sitting in front of a screen and you're watching candlesticks. If you choose that pattern, if you choose bars, that's fine. Whatever suits your need and how you like to see the data. But when it all boils down to it, you're in an isolated state because it's just you and the data, you and the screen. So you don't have any outside sources. You don't have any support. You don't have any other aspects that you can bounce off of right in that moment that you're trying to trade. You have to be focused and funnel visioned, because without it, the chaotic nature of the markets will master you rather than you mastering yourself. That's why it's extremely important that when you're done with trading, you either have a journal to write things down, brings them to life, or you have a sounding board and a mentor to be able to help you better understand why you did or didn't make a trade. Both of those answers are just equally as important as becoming a successful trader. Because when you're isolated, that silent narrative in your head takes over. And as it does, that fear will creep in. That greed will creep in. Maybe you start to believe self-doubt. But the self-doubt aspect needs to be flipped. Because no matter what you do in life, you would much rather live a life authentically to you in the way that you want to live it, rather than imitating someone else's life perfectly with no failures. I would much rather live my life the way that suits me, failing as many times as I can, so that I can become better for the next time I'm presented with an opportunity or a roadblock. That's authentic living. I don't want to replicate anyone else's life. And I don't want to impersonate anyone else, because I can't live the world that they live in. I also can't make the mistakes that they make because we view them differently. So no matter what happens in what you choose to do, choose it authentically for you, not for me, not for anyone in this conference, not for family or friends. Choose it for you. Because when you choose to do it, it means more. There's a reason when someone gives you an answer, like if I were to give you a trading strategy, it won't work for you because that's my strategy. That works for me. So if I'm going to give you an answer, that's impossible. I haven't lived your life. You haven't lived mine. But that doesn't mean I can't offer assistance and help to try to shape what will work for you, like scaffolding on a building. I can put up the scaffolding for you, but I can't build the building. That's up to you. Because your perspective and your mindset when building that whole entire process is extremely important. The perspective you have is how things might have happened to you or maybe will happen. Your mindset needs to be deployed in the moment. So if you go into trading and that moment before you trade is going to be, this is going to be bad, you have already set yourself up for a mindset of this is not going to go well. That doesn't work. If you have set yourself up for, okay, this may work, this could work, I'm following my method, your current mindset is giving you the opportunity to become better and beginning the opportunity to see that things could go in the direction that helps you. That's predicated off of two aspects. You deciding if you have a growth mindset or you have a fixed mindset. The biggest difference between the two, and this is done by Carol Dweck. She is amazing in her field. I highly recommend, if you have the time or you have the inclination, to go check out some of the work she's done. She's incredible. The growth mindset is built from the ideas and concepts that the tools and abilities that you have in life will morph. They will grow. And as they grow, so do you. You are not built to only be one way. That's a growth mindset. Your fixed mindset is when you understand that the tools and abilities that you have now were given to you and born into you, and they're not going to change. So if you believe that this is the best you can be right now, this is it. That's going to be a fixed mindset. If you go in with a growth mindset, looking at things as an opportunity for you to become better, to learn more, to be the best that you can, because you've failed, because you know that no matter what happens, you have the tenacity to keep going. Build your growth mindset. It will only help you in ways that only you're going to be able to see. Because at the end of the day, it's not fix what you're doing. You have to fix how you're doing it. There's a very big distinction between the two. Because how you decide to do something will dictate your outcome. It's very different than what you're doing. If you're just throwing things against the wall and hopefully something sticks, you're not going to be able to fix anything. But you can fix your process. You can fix how you decide to set yourself up. That's extremely important. Which is one of the bigger components of how we decide to view how we set ourselves up. Because in trading, the psychology of trading specifically is really steeped in fear and greed. Those are two of the major aspects. I'm sure you've heard it many times over. Because the fear of trading is an extremely big trigger. The greed of trading can be a very big trigger. You need to recognize when those happen to you. Because when greed kicks in and you believe that something has gone up and you believe it's going to continue to go up and keep going up, no matter what happens, at some point, you have to be able to recognize, I need to take profits now. This is outside the scope of what I thought was going to happen. Now, that's okay if you want to move your stop loss up, because your stop loss will prevent you from having a cataclysmic drop, which would be terrible. We've all been there. Our stop loss wasn't positioned correctly. Our greed got out of control. And now all of a sudden, we've gone from a large amount of profit to maybe half of it, to maybe a quarter, to now breaking even. So when that greed kicks in, recognize that your stop loss needs to trail with you. My mentor gave me a great model. Trade with the trend. It will always be your friend. It's phenomenal. Because if you can look at the trend of what's happening at a certain stock, whatever it is that you're trading, trade with it. Now you'll have to decide if you want to choose that to be a day trade, a swing trade, a short, an investment, a scalp, whatever it may be. All those methods you need to deploy at your own risk. But the other side of that coin of fear, that has wrecked more trades than I can possibly share with you. That fear wrecked the entire first year of my trading. You see, I began trading in February of 2020. No one had any idea COVID was happening, and we had no idea what the outfall would be. Well, try taking a brand new trader with a new account and trying to deploy everything that you've learned when the world shuts down. It did not go well. And it threw my mental state off drastically. So it built in me fear. Now, I'm hoping you're going to be able to write this down for me, wherever you are. If you have the ability for a pen and paper, write it down. If you're digitally, take out your notes in your phone and write it down for me. It's fear, but I need you to spell fear down. F-E-A-R. And the reason that I'm hoping that you'll be able to empower yourself after you hear it is fear is a biometric mark for you. You'll feel it in your body. And when you do, that's going to trigger a reaction from you, whether that's fight or flight, or whether that's panic or anger, whatever it is. That fear that you have inside you, I'm hoping you'll be able to see as a trigger to frequently evaluate your assumed risk. That's fear spelled down. So every single time that you feel as though fear is creeping up, look over at that sheet of paper or look at your notes on your phone or on your laptop or tablet, whatever it is. Now when that fear triggers you and you hit and you feel it, look at that and frequently evaluate your assumed risk. That is what changed the way that I have begun to trade. Years ago, I had to realize that my trading out of fear, I was responding to emotion, and that trigger was not controlling correctly my actions and reactions. I had to reframe it. I had to reshape it. So I hope that that is the empowerment that you can take away from understanding fear will always be present. No matter what it is that you're doing, it will be there. It will be in the back of your mind. It'll be right before you click. But the more you pay attention to it and you let it guide you in the correct way, you will frequently evaluate your assumed risk more often. And the more that you do that, the better you will understand your trading sequences. Because your methodology needs to be followed in order for you to become successful at trading. So the more that you evaluate your risk, the more that you evaluate your indicators, the more that you decide this is a day trade, so I have to use a 10-minute time frame. I can't use a 14-day RSI on trading because this is going to be a day trade. When you evaluate your risk, you start to look at your sequences of events and you put them into play correctly. Because if you wanted to say you wanted to make a day trade and the trend is absolutely diving and you're not shorting, that's going to be a trigger for you. You're going to feel an immense amount of fear because you're not following your formula correctly. Make sure you follow it. Make sure you build it. Make sure you test it before you jump into becoming everything predicated on it. Because you'll hear a lot of instinctual trading or trusting your gut. Well, your gut is known as your second brain. But your gut does not possess the prefrontal cortex of your brain, which is the evaluator of risk. You need to have them both in unison. Your brain will evaluate how much risk you're willing to take based off of the experiences that you've had in life. Your gut does not. Your gut just gives you an internal feeling that this may work or it may not work. That's not a solid indicator. But you know what it is? Your correct method for trading. That will shift and morph. Once you develop one strategy, that doesn't work for every different aspect of trading. It helps you, but you can't use a day trading strategy for an investment in a retirement. That's impossible. You know that, I know that. That just won't work. So being able to correctly understand how much risk you're willing to take, understanding that when that fear triggers inside your body, that's going to be your nervous system coming up and creating those nerves, and your hand starts to shake. Maybe you get sweaty palms before you make a trade. So make sure you consistently evaluate what you're doing in order for you to get better at what it is. And Alex has said, this is a great analogy. Running. You can't just jump in and run a marathon if you've never run anything before. But that also means that runners, no matter how much you train at running, you will not be great at running up a staircase. That's a different type of running and training. But you're still running. Very different aspects and concepts of how you deploy the trading skills into what you choose to do. Running is great. You can run a marathon if you train. That doesn't mean you can run 50 flights of stairs in 2 minutes. It doesn't work that way. Same thing with lifting weights, going to the gym. You're not going to be able to go in and bench 500 pounds if you've never gone to the gym before. You have to do it in slow increments. That's also how you manage risk. So when you consistently evaluate your risk, you start to increase your confidence. And then as your confidence increases, you get to take more risk. Now, if that's 10% of your portfolio, probably don't recommend it. But again, that's up to you. That all plays into the growth mindset, the fixed mindset. And it also comes into play about the scarcity or the abundance side of what you grew up with. If you came from the environment without a whole bunch, your risks are going to be very diminished. You're not going to want to take a ton because money means more to you. If you become from an abundant side where you've had ample resources, your risk is going to be very high because it doesn't have the same meaning to you. And that's okay. You just need to know which one fits you better. So no matter what you choose to do, it needs to be steeped in the ideas and concepts of what suit you. Not me, not anyone else. And to close this up and to bring this to hopefully an area that will help you. When I've made my very first trade using a strategy and a formula that worked for me was Apple. And I will never forget it. The very first time that I felt confident about my trade was Apple. I had traded many different stocks that were, very low. There are some names I'd never heard of. I was looking at stock tickers and charts and scanners just to try to find an opportunity. It never worked. But when I found a method that worked for me and I traded Apple, it was the greatest trade I still to this date have ever made. No trade will ever be better than that. It's because I chose to empower me with it. That was the biggest thing for me. And then my shift happened when I recognized that that method worked. I needed to rescope how I viewed success and failure. Because when you think about it, failure ceases to exist unless you have something to measure it against, which is success. So before you do anything in life, this also is included in trading, make sure you define your success. Because your success cannot be predicated on an external validation or a source that gives it to you. It needs to be from here. Your success should be driven in your process. Your success should be driven in things that are unobtainable, like creating a bigger impact, like becoming a better person. Those success stories don't ever end. They also take failure as a step of helping you succeed. So correctly define your versions of success steeped in your process rather than success steeped in your goals. Because your goals will always be short-term. You will always hit them or you will not. And I used to have an outcome of 50-50. I either succeeded or I failed. And that's just simply not how life works. There is a gray area. And between that is your process. Succeed at that before you do anything else. One of the helpful ways that I have helped others, as well as myself, fully start to understand what it means to succeed and fail is creating a value system. Now, Alex or Angelina, I don't know if you guys are still here, but if you have that slide, would it be possible to throw that up? Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is usually what I use to help people have a better understanding of themselves. Because the you that sits at the center has to be you. It cannot be anything else. Once you start to do that, you begin to build a value system. That value system is predicated off what you choose as important. For example, I choose learning as important to me. That's something I value very, very much. Now, I've determined what values to me is learning. How do I learn? That's my belief system. My belief system then builds around, I can learn by joining a tradefulness, listening to a conference, maybe hearing a podcast, reading, writing. Whatever avenue works, that feeds into my value system. That's my beliefs. As you can see next, once you start to believe how to feed into your value system, you start to understand yourself. You start to better understand how you operate. And when you start to understand how you operate, you then begin to figure out what brings you joy and happiness and fulfillment and sadness and pain. All of those things are now on the outskirts of who you are. They help you become a better person. Once you figure out what gives you all those joys and happinesses, you then start to set boundaries, figuring out how to protect yourself or to extend yourself to create those opportunities in your life. Once you do that, you start to internally validate who you are. And you stop allowing the external world to validate you. After that, now you have a better understanding of the people that you surround yourself with. And now once you start to understand everyone else, that is the moment that you have the opportunity to impact someone else's life and to teach and help. It's very difficult to teach and help someone if you do not understand your own values. But that's how you can build your values. So if you're jumping into trading, hopefully you value trading. You don't value the other aspects of what it is. When you value trading, you can do it in many different ways. You can day trade, you can swing trade, you can scalp, you can invest. There's tons of different options that you can do. Trading in a 10-minute time frame, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is that you choose to do. That's how you build the belief system around valuing your own trading. Start there. And hopefully, at the end of the day, you're going to figure out what means something to you, and then you will build from that to create a lighter life, not only in trading, but in everything that you do. So I hope that by the end of this, you feel as though you have some sort of tools and tips or tricks that you've written down that have helped you become better at what you choose to do. No one can give you an answer, but the only thing we can do is provide you scaffolding. So with that, I'd love to open it up to questions, to be able to help see if anybody has anything that they need me to answer. Thank you. I appreciate the time. Good.
Okay, yeah, I'm here, finally. Okay, thank you so much, Greg. A lot of insights in your speech. So we have a couple of questions. So a question from Maria. Can you share an example of a trader who successfully reframed their fear into a powerful tool?
Yes, absolutely. One of the very first people that I helped deploy that aspect had, every time that they went in to go do a trade, they didn't recognize that those biomarkers that hit them and that fear became crippling to them. So we had to move out of an actual active trading portfolio, and I helped them move into a paper trading portfolio. And just that simple switch of jumping into a paper trading strategy, but allowing them to feel the same triggers, helped them eventually remove the amount of times that they made the mistake. So I helped them understand that when that fear hit, close out of your real trading account. If that fear becomes very overwhelming, move into your paper trading account and make the trade, then see the results. So that's the only way that you're going to be able to figure out how you decide to reframe it and work it, because your trade, how you do it, is your choice. But how you help yourself figure out if the trade is more fearful, or if the trade is confident, or if the trade is greedful. Those triggers are all biomarkers. If they're very strong, jump into a paper trading account, make the same trade you would, and see the results. That eventually helps them understand that fear becomes less and less and less the more they get results, and it creates confidence.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And mostly similar question to what you have said before. So, but let me repeat it. What strategy? So the question is from Selena. What strategies do you recommend for managing fear-based reactions in volatile markets?
The three aspects that I have hopefully deployed earlier on, which is understanding, controlling what you can control. That is your breath, and that is saying it out loud. So if you feel as though things are out of control and that chaotic nature is happening in the markets around you, that cannot permeate the way that you choose to operate. This needs to be at a peaceful, calm, clarity state. So the only way to do that is to consistently evaluate, oh my God, this is chaos, but I have a trading strategy to operate in chaos. That's the reason you have a trading strategy. Otherwise, you just move with the masses in the chaos. Your strategy is what will create the calmness. But you can only develop a correct strategy if you have the right mentor or right coach or right sounding board or right community to help you get to where you need to be. So your strategy needs to be calm the external chaos that's permeating your internal world by using the correct strategy that works for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And a question from me. So you're working not only with traders, but with the usual people as a
Correct.
psychologist, right?
Correct.
So what features of mindset do traders have that are unavailable for usual people?
Well, normally a lot of the individuals that I continue to work with more come from an internal struggle about self-belief as well as relationships. And in trading, those don't usually happen because you're only dealing with data. And more often than not in the human world, you're dealing with another human presence. And those are two different dichotomies that are happening. One is data driven. And when you're a trader, you only have data. That is all you have. Markets don't care who you are, what you do, how old you are, how young you are. It doesn't care. All you have is data. But in the outside world, when you have another human force with you, you do have to take into account their emotions, their upbringing, their responses, their triggers. Markets don't have triggers. You do. So when you're able to understand the relationship sides are very different than trading sides, you approach them drastically different with how you decide to help people move forward and get through roadblocks or things that are barriers that are holding them back from becoming successful at either trading or successful at believing in themselves or relationships or business, whatever that may be. They all boil down to how you decide to view it. One is data driven and the other is human driven.
Okay, and one more question, so connected with this. So I met a lot of traders who want to, uh, whose needs are not connected with trading. For example, they want to have a strong relationships with uh, a huge amount of love, but they think that they need to earn a lot of money in trading, and only after that they can receive this love. But it's not true. So love is they can get love without trading. So what
Yes.
would you recommend for them, for these people who cannot consciously understand their needs, and they are starting trading not to just earn money, but to implement some of their needs?
Correct. That is very common. And a lot of the times that for many of the people that I've worked with in the past, love is something that you own. You have it, you possess it. The only way that you can give love to anyone else around you, that's your family, your friends, anyone who's helping you, in order for you to give that love, you have to possess it. So if you already possess it, there's nothing stopping you from giving it to yourself because you already own it. So when you help people recognize that in order to love someone else, they already have the skills to love themselves. That's not an external aspect. That's not external validation. That's not money. That's not possessions. That's not your house, your car, your clothes, any of that. Because all of those things will eventually go away. There's a great saying, you've never seen a U-Haul attached to a hearse. There's a reason you can't take it with you. But the only thing you can do is love yourself in the same way that you would deploy love to the people that you trust and support.
Okay, you just need to discover the inner love to
Yes.
yourself. Okay, great. Very, very profound idea. Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you so much for your insights. It was very interesting. It is very insightful and profound and useful. Thank you for joining us and supporting us.
Thank you, Alex. I'm super happy to be here. I'm very grateful that you are doing this, and hopefully your help and the help of other people here have been able to make life a little bit lighter for all traders out there, as well as how they operate in the real world.